Hello, my name is John Otten, and I am a missions consultant with Kentucky WMU. I work with Royal Ambassadors and also with Kentucky Changers. And today I want to share with you a couple of Bible stories. There are two short ones that I'm going to tell together. They're about Martha and Mary and a little bit about their brother Lazarus. But we're going to go through this, and I'm going to tell it to you in a fashion that's called Bible telling. This is very similar to the way in which our IMB missionaries teach Bible stories on the field among people of other cultures. It's a very simple, straightforward telling of the Bible stories. It's not a rote memorization of the Bible story where it's word for word, but it's just a telling of the story based upon your memory without any fancy elaborations added to it. And I've got a few hand signs as well that I do with it, and these can help to remember the story as you tell it. So I'm going to tell you the story, and then we're going to go back through it, and I'm going to try to help you learn the story here in this short video. So before I tell the story, I want to let you know that the first part of the story is found in Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. And then the second part of the story, which happens at a little bit later time, is found in John chapter 12, verses 1 through 11. All right, so here's the two stories. As Jesus and his disciples were traveling, they came to a village named Bethany, where a woman named Martha invited them in to her home. Now, Martha had a sister named Mary. Mary sat at the feet of Jesus, listening to everything that he said. Martha, on the other hand, was busy with all the preparations, cooking and things like that had to be done. And she came to Jesus and she said, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all of the work? Tell her to get up and help me." Now, Jesus said, "Martha, Martha, you are worried about many things when only a few things are needed. In fact, only one. And Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Now, the second story goes like this. At a later time, when the Passover was close, Jesus and his disciples were once again in Bethany having a meal. Lazarus was there with them. He was also eating and reclining at the table, and Martha was once again serving. Now, Mary came to the table where they were reclining, and she brought a bottle of perfume, and she took the top off, and she poured it over Jesus's head and feet. Now, some of the guests at the dinner got quite angry about this, including Judas, one of Jesus's disciples. Judas said to Jesus, "Why waste this perfume like this? It could have been sold for more than a man makes in 1 year. That money could have been given to the poor." Now, Judas didn't really care about the poor. He cared about the money. You see, he was the keeper of the money for the group, and he used to take out of it for himself. Jesus responded to Judas and the others who were angry and said, "Now hold on. Don't give this woman a hard time. She has done a beautiful thing. The poor, they'll be here all the time for you to help. But me, I won't always be here. I'm going to die soon. And she has already helped to prepare my body for burial. In the future, many, many years from now, when people tell about me, they will also tell about what she has done for me." Okay, so that's the two stories told together, and I'm going to walk back through them and help you to try to remember the story. Not, like I said, not based on memorization, but based upon just the story itself and how you remember it in your mind, and the hand signals to help. So it begins with Jesus and his 12 disciples. They're traveling, so I use 2 fingers to act like walking. They're traveling. They came to a village named Bethany where a woman named Martha was invited them. So I'm acting like I'm opening a door and inviting someone into my home. Okay, where Martha invited them into her home. She had a sister named Mary. Now, names, you're going to have to be able to remember names. Unless you know sign language and can spell out the names, which your audience or your listeners probably won't know. You're just going to have to remember the names. But you might do something like this, arm around the shoulder for a sister or for a brother, if you wanted to do that. But she had a sister named Mary who sat, and so it was hard to see on the video, but I kind of motioned down towards my feet. She sat at the feet of Jesus and then hand around the ear, listening to everything that he said. Okay. Now we go back to Martha. Martha was busy preparing. So I'm trying to pretend like I have a big bowl and I'm stirring it. Martha was busy preparing, and doing the things that had to be done. And she came to Jesus and said, "Don't you care?" So hands up like this. "Don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work? Tell her," and I'm pointing like at another person, "tell her to get up and help me." And Jesus responds, "Martha, Martha, you are worried about many things." So I kind of do my hands like this, almost like a juggling motion of many things. You're worried about many things, but only a few things are needed. In fact, just one. And Mary has chosen, so act like you're picking something, choosing something. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. So like holding something close to you, not be taken away from her. Okay, so that's the end of the first story. All right, and then the second story, you can at a later time, you might even motion at a later time, something like that. They were once again in Bethany at Passover time eating a meal. All right, and you might add in Lazarus was there with them, reclining at the table, and Martha was once again serving. So I was acting like I was passing out, food or plates or something like that. Once again, serving. All right. Mary brought a bottle, so I act like I'm holding a bottle. Okay. She took the top off and poured the oil, a bottle of perfume. You got to remember to say that. That is important to remember that. A bottle of perfume, took the top off and poured it over the head and feet of Jesus. A lot of the guests were angry, and you might just kind of make a slightly angry face, scrunch your eyebrows down or something like that. Became angry, and Judas, one of his disciples, said to him, "Why?" Again, this is why. I use this a lot for a questioning kind of statement in the stories. Why was this perfume wasted like this? It could have been sold for more money than a man makes in 1 year. Okay, so it's worth over a whole year's wage. That's a lot of money. Okay, could have been sold for what a man makes in 1 year, and then the money. So this little motion, rubbing the thumb and fingers together, is oftentimes a motion for money. The money could have been used to help the poor. Now, Judas didn't say this because he cared about the poor, and so I shake my head, and again, a little bit of a scowl. Judas didn't do this because he cared about the poor. He used to keep the money, and he would take from it for himself. So holding like a bag of money or some money, and then take from it for himself. Okay? Then Jesus said, and I hold up a hand, "Hold on. Don't give this woman a hard time. She has done a beautiful thing. The poor or poor people will always be with you to take care of. But I will not always be with you. I will die soon." So I use this because Jesus' death occurred on a cross. And so I use that to help me remember I will die soon. Okay. And she has already helped to prepare my body for burial. In the future, or many, many years from now, however you want to say that, when people tell, so just a finger to my mouth and going out, tell about me, point at yourself. When people tell about me, they will also tell about me. They will also tell about what she has done, and then point away from you like at another person. Okay, so that's the two stories, and just before I end the video, I'm going to walk back through it and tell them both again one more time, and I want you to notice again the hand motions and things that I use, and also notice that I'm going to tell it again, but it's not going to be probably exactly like I told it the first time. And that's because, again, Bible telling is not telling a story word for word from memory. It's simply telling the story from your memory of the story, almost like in your mind you're watching the story happen and you're telling someone else what you're seeing happen. Okay, so it's that kind of telling of the story. And so it's not always going to come out the same. And if you forget a part of it, don't get frustrated or worried about that if you're telling it to somebody else. Just continue on with the story, and let the Spirit of God guide you and help you in the telling of this story. Okay, so I'm going to tell them again. And it's always good to tell where the stories are coming from. So that's why I told y'all the first time, these two stories. The first one comes from Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. And the references, unfortunately, you will have to memorize so that you can share those. But Luke 10, verses 38 through 42, and you may notice I'm looking down because I don't have that one memorized real good. It's not lodged in here real well. And then the other one is John chapter 12, verses 1 through 11. And you notice I looked down again to double check that, okay? So that's where those two stories come from. And oftentimes when people use Bible telling, they may have their Bible with them, and they may even open it up to that passage. So you may have a little slip of paper in your Bible where you mark that, and with that written on there. So it's easy to read those two references to somebody, but then they like lay the Bible on their lap or something, and they don't read from it, but they tell the story. But it's important to have your Bible there so people know that these stories are not something you're making up, but they're stories that come from the Bible. That's why we have the Bible with us. That's why we share the references. So Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42 is where our first story comes from in the Bible, and John chapter 12, verses 1 through 11 is where our second story comes from in the Bible. So Jesus and his disciples were traveling when they came to a village named Bethany, where a woman named Martha opened her home to them. Now Martha had a sister, and again, remember, maybe an arm around the shoulder, had a sister named Mary who sat at the feet of Jesus listening to what he said. Now Martha was very busy with preparing for the meal, and she came to Jesus and said, "Jesus, don't you care that my sister has left all of the work for me to do? Tell her to get up and help me." And Jesus said, "Martha, Martha, you are worried about many things, and really there's only a few things that are needed. In fact, just one. And Mary has chosen what is better, and it won't be taken away from her." Now, at a later time, Jesus was once again with his disciples in Bethany, and they were having a meal. And Lazarus was there with them. He was also reclining at the table. And Martha was once again serving during the meal. Now, Mary came in to where they were reclining at the table and brought a bottle of perfume with her. And she took the top off and she poured that perfume over Jesus's head and feet. Now, a lot of the guests at the meal got angry about that. Judas was one of them. He was one of Jesus's disciples. And he said to Jesus, "Why waste this perfume like this? It could have been sold for more than a man makes in a whole year. That money could have been given to help the poor." And Jesus, now Judas didn't say this because he cared about the poor, but because he used to keep the money and take from it for himself. Jesus said to Judas and to the others who were angry, he said, "The poor you will always have with you, but you don't need to give this woman a hard time. What she has done is a beautiful thing. You can help the poor because they're always with you, but I won't always be with you. In fact, I'm going to die soon, and what she has done has helped to prepare my body for burial. Many, many years from now, when people tell about me, they will also tell about what she has done for me." Okay, so there's the story again, and I hope you notice that after Judas complained about the money and that it could have been given to the poor, I almost skipped over the part where the Bible tells about how he didn't really care about the poor, but that he wanted some of the money for himself. And then I thought of it after I went on to what Jesus was saying about leaving her alone, and so I jumped back, and so you notice that wasn't in the same order that time, and that's okay, because sometimes as we tell a story and we get into something, one part, we remember a part that we had kind of gone over, and we might want to go back and add it in, and that's perfectly fine. So that's Bible telling, and that's Bible telling with the story of Martha and Mary when Jesus was there having dinner at their home, and then another time the story about Mary when she anoints Jesus during a meal that he is at in the town of Bethany. So thanks for listening to my Bible telling story, and you can practice this at home just using the Bible sitting in front of you, and practice telling that story to somebody in your family, to a younger brother or sister, to your parents, to your grandparents. And the more times you tell it, the better it gets lodged in your mind as you see that almost like movie of it happening. And then you'll be able to use it in other situations, like at a vacation Bible school. Maybe you're out with your friends and something happens and you think of this, maybe you have a friend who's worried about a lot of things. And you say, let me tell you about the story of Martha when she was worried about a lot of things. And you can tell that part of the story. So Bible telling stories, which is basically all the stories in the Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation. There are stories throughout the Bible, and you can learn to tell them in this way to help other people come to know Jesus and believe in Jesus like you do. Thanks for watching my video, and I hope you have a great day, and I hope you have a great time telling these stories to others. Bye-bye.